Pledge of allegiance and moment of silence. Mr. Reba, attendance, roll call.
Mr. Bonomo, Mr. Chapman,
Here.
Dr. Childs, Mr. Early, Mr. John,
Present.
Holland,
Here.
Mr. Donald,
Here.
Mr. Wallace,
Here.
Ms. Yannick.
Here.
Public comment and questions directed to the board on agenda items only. Dr. Butler, could you look? No one? Okay, then at this time, unless there's anything else I don't know about, I'll turn the program over to Dr. Antonelli.
Recommend board approve the adoption of the preliminary general fund 2015-16 budget.
So moved.
Second. Questions or comments on that from anyone?
I could offer a few words.
Okay, Mr. Reba, go ahead.
We gave you tonight at your place the preliminary budget. We also copied on the one-page sheet that's the state preliminary general fund budget adoption on the top. These three items we covered at the January 28th budget meeting, so we gave it for you again tonight. And I'll just quickly go over items 1 for you, which gives some details on what's in the preliminary budget. Totals, revenue about 132.7 million. Expenses 142.7 million. We have about a $10 million deficit at this point with the preliminary budget. We use the 14-15 budget as a base budget. Included in the changes we made in the PCERS rate going up from 21.43% to 25.84%. We included the salary increases for teachers and administrators on the step movement on the new scale. The support staff and Teamsters also received the salary increases. We budgeted new teaching positions for 15-16. Initially, we just put in a number of 10 new positions, primarily for the 7th and 8th grade opening at Maple Manor. We have been talking about adoptions of textbooks in this initial preliminary budget. We did include $1 million. Now, this number I think is high, but we did put that in as a plug number at this point until you decide which textbooks adoptions you would like to approve. We put in debt service for the upcoming bond issue, which will do the final borrowing on the Maple Manor. We included a budgetary reserve of $500,000. Right now, currently in the 14-15, it's zero. We typically had about 500 or so in the past several years. Ready to Learn grant, we included 1.2 million as revenue. Uncertain as of the status of that in the upcoming state budget, but we did receive that this year. Tax relief and homestead, we did not include that. The budget program will not allow us to put that information in until the revised software comes out sometime in April or May. We did not include gaming funds. Again, the software for the state budget does not put the gaming fund money in until later in the April-May timeframe. And we did increase all of the tax rates past the index just to be able to apply for the referendum exceptions. I'm not saying we're going to take these exceptions, but we'd like to apply for them just in case we need them. In number 2 there listed the 4 exceptions that we can apply for, 2 for school construction. Third one is for special education expenditures, and the 4th one is for retirement contributions. And 3 is the budget timelines. You could read that at your leisure. Basically, we need to approve a preliminary budget by tomorrow, February 18th, so we're a day ahead of schedule. We did do the required advertising and public display as listed there in B and C.
Mr. Reba,
Yes.
voting yes on this, does that mean that we are voting to exceed the current tax rates? Or does it mean we're not going to exceed the current?
It does not lock you into anything for the final budget. Voting yes on this will allow us to apply for the exceptions. We do not have to take any of the exceptions if we're granted them, and we do not have to raise taxes in the final budget at all, so you're not locked into either of those.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Reba, when was the last time the district actually applied for and received the exceptions?
I don't have that with me. I believe it was 3, possibly 4 years ago.
Okay, thank you.
The last 2 years prior, we did the resolution that stated we would not exceed the index.
Okay, thank you.
We did see and received, correspondence from PSBA and PASBO that, a number of school districts are going this route this year just because of the difficult times with the revenue for all the various programs.
And as any of your networking sources gave you any information in terms of the PlanCom reimbursement? How are we looking? I mean, obviously, we've got several projects out there. I know we're in the pipeline with all those projects, but any time frame?
From my understanding, there's no new information. We're in the pipeline. We got in under the wire for McAdoo, for the Magnet School, and for Maple Manor, but it's pretty much a waiting game like the other districts.
There are discussions, Mr. Mahalik, to cut the steps from roughly 11 down to 4 or 5 to make the process more expeditious.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions on number 1? Okay, Mr. Reba.
On number 1, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion passes.
Recommend board authorize the business office to apply for referendum exemptions on the Pennsylvania Department of Education website.
Need a motion?
I make that motion.
Second.
Questions or comments on number 2?
And again, I just repeat, it's been about 4 years the last time that we've actually applied for, received, and were granted the exceptions.
Yeah, just to clarify, we applied for exceptions
Right.
and we qualified for exceptions, but we did not use them at
Right.
that point.
So it's still basically a formality that we're applying, and we've done this in the past, and,
Yes.
okay, thank you.
Any other questions, comments on number 2? Mr. Reba?
Number 2, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Ayes have it, noting the no vote.
Recommend board approve the following Bloomsburg student observations, 40 hours each, clearance is on file.
Need a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Mr. Reba? Or, I'm sorry, any questions or comments on number 3? Mr. Reba?
Number 3, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion passes.
Recommend board approve Diana Romero, 6.5-hour bilingual paraprofessional, Maple Manor Elementary Middle School at a salary of $10.55 per hour as per the HASD contract pending completion of credentials of competency and receipt of clearances and Act 168 disclosure form.
So move.
Second.
Questions or comments on number 4?
So this new staff member doesn't actually have the required certificate, so she's going to take the competency.
Correct.
Okay, thank you, Doctor.
Anything else? Mr. Reba?
Number 4, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion passes.
Recommend board approve Betty McCara, 6.5-hour special education paraprofessional, Hazleton Area Career Center at a salary of $12.53 per hour as per the HAESPA contract.
So moved.
Second.
Questions or comments? Number 5. Mr. Reba?
Number 5, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion passes.
Recommend board approve a change in title to home and school visitor for Kimberly Baronio effective immediately.
So move.
Second.
Questions or comments?
Yeah, what was her previous?
Outreach counselor.
Thank you, Doctor.
Anything else? Mr. Reba?
Number 6, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion passes.
Recommend board approve settlement agreement between the HAEA and the HASD in regard to grievance 12-13-05 PSEA case number 14/0172.
So move.
Second.
Questions or comments?
I have a problem voting this since I don't know what it's about.
I actually second that. I'm not familiar with this at all.
I don't know exactly what it would be about. I don't know if we can even discuss it right
Not
here.
at this
Yeah,
time.
so, is it something that we did discuss, though, in executive session that I remember?
Yes, this is a historic issue. We can discuss it in executive session. If you would like, we could do a 2 or 3 minute right now.
How about we have a short executive session right in the back here?
Thank
Then
you.
maybe we can vote on it.
Thank you.
Okay, are there any other comments before we vote on it? Mr. Reba?
Number 7, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion passes.
Recommend board approve advertising and posting for an assistant principal for Maple Manor Elementary and Middle School.
So move.
Second.
Questions or comments? Mr. Reba?
Number 8, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion passes.
Recommend board appoint Lindsay Kovalik as secondary mathematics teacher at a salary of $40,712 as per HAEA agreement.
So move.
Second.
Questions or comments? Mr. Reba?
Number 9, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion
I
passes.
believe Lindsay is here this evening. Lindsay, welcome aboard. If you stand up, I'd like to congratulate you, and I know you'll do a fine job.
Thank you, Lindsay.
Recommend board authorize human resources to advertise for the position of superintendent of schools.
Motion?
So moved.
Second. Questions or comments? Mr. Reba?
Number 10, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nope.
Ayes have it, motion passes.
Any other questions or comments on anything?
Mr. Chapman, I'm thrilled that we're able to fill the math position so quickly. I would like In November, we had voted to establish another kindergarten position at Arthur Street. It's now February, we still haven't filled the position. If we don't have a list of people, I would ask that maybe we could just put a substitute in until we're able to fill the position, because we had made a conscious effort to keep the class sizes down. We voted that night to follow that process, and it's now the end of February, and we still haven't gotten there. So if we don't have anybody who's available, I would ask that maybe we just put a substitute in until we're able to go through the process as soon as possible.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Dr. Antonelli, any comment on that? Is that where
We
we're
can
at?
do that,
We do that?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and thank you, Mr. Wallace, because I know certainly we have made a commitment to our staff. Is there room in the building for, I'm assuming there are, but there's room for, okay. I agree, I think we should, there's gotta be some.
I know Mrs. McHale is working on the blind copy. She's back there, I believe. There's 800 applicants, Mrs. McHale, if I'm not mistaken. And you had indicated that figure earlier in the week? Several hundred? Okay, so that's been the delay, but we can certainly put a sub in.
Sure.
Okay, sounds good then.
Thank you.
Any public comment on non-agenda items before we wrap it up? Okay, how about a motion then to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
And a second? All in favor? Say aye. Meeting adjourned.